What's going on, everybody? It's Paul Conway with Beyond the Shield, and we are at a special place. This is the New Berlin Volunteer Fire Department Historical Society Museum, and with me is one of the curators, Jim Liska. So we are here today because I started thinking about my days as a volunteer and what an effect it had on me when I went through my career in the fire service. And I literally started thinking, you know, there's a lot of people like me. Like, as a matter of fact, there's close to 400, I think, that came through the system in the years that the fire department was volunteer. The city of New Berlin is now protected by a full-time career fire department. So the volunteer department ended in 2000. So it went from 1954 to 2000. Jim, thanks for having us today. We really appreciate it. So tell us a little bit about the museum, and then we're going to walk around and you can talk to us about the fire department.
Okay, well, as you said, the fire department, in terms of being a volunteer department, ended on January 1st of 2001. The volunteer department lasted for 46 years, and we were truly volunteer. We never got any money for any calls we ran. There was no stipends. So we wanted to memorialize the 46 years of volunteerism that was part of the city. So when the new Station 3 was built, this old firehouse became a museum for the city, and we took over this bay here, and everything in the bay is from the New Berlin Volunteer Fire Department, including the engine that is behind us, which was the last volunteer engine. It's a 1982 Ford Persh engine that still runs, still pumps, doesn't leak any water. So we're very fortunate to have that.
So this firehouse itself, in the history of the annals of the fire department, is kind of interesting because this was a farm district back in the day. This was an old gas station turned into a firehouse, and the members that worked here, we used to call this was Goat Hill. This was like farm territory, so it developed this moniker of Goat Hill. There was an engine company out of here and an ambulance out of here at the time. Yeah. But again, completely volunteer.
Yes, the station came into the department 1963, and then the addition was added on in 1981 when they brought the ambulance up here.
Yeah, because there used to be there was a brush truck here and then an engine company originally that I remember as a kid. But anyway, so Jim, let's take a walk around and show me some of the things in here that make up this fine museum and that represent the 46-year history of the volunteers.
This is the lockers from station number 2. They were built by firefighter Walt Wilms when he was there. What we did is we set it up to show what the locker would have looked like in 1962 when that firehouse was built, and then what it looked like in 1990 era. So that's what we did there. And then the helmets above are all helmets that were worn by the different members of the department.
In my career in the volunteers, I ended up retiring as assistant chief of training, but I was a captain of 2 different firehouses, one of them being Station 5, which had an engine and a truck in it. The other was Station 2, which had engine 4, this engine, and Walt Wilms was the driver at the time. As a young man, quite frankly, if you weren't on your way, your path, and a lot of people we're going to talk to later today became career firefighters, if you weren't on that path, I felt, quite frankly, you were probably useless. There was no need for you, because if you're either into this and you're going to be into the job and you're going to be making a difference and you're going to be heading out to a career job, or what are you here for? Quite frankly, I was dead wrong. And what I realized over the years was that everybody has a purpose, and there's always there's a specific task for everyone. Let's continue on.
All right.
What is this thing here? What is this?
Okay, this is a plectron. Back when the department started, before there were pagers, they had these large plectron alert devices sitting on the volunteers' kitchen table at home. And it would sound off, and you wrote down the address, and you went to the fire. When the department started, 1954, there was no city government out here. This was a loosely run town. Fire department was started through the efforts of the Lions Club, raising the original cash to buy the original apparatus, that type of thing. When the department started, they put telephones into 5 of the members' houses, with one of the wives being the dispatcher. One of those 5 members' wives was in the house 24 hours a day to answer the phone. She would answer the phone, write down the address, and then start a phone chain originally to notify the members. Then we moved on to the Plectron device, and then we moved on to pagers. But the beginning of this fire department, when you go back and you look at the history back in the early 50s, and the community effort that it took was really, really impressive, that these people got together and did this. And then it turned into being, over time, the largest volunteer fire department in the state by the 1970s.
I remember my mother, in my parents' bedroom was a radio and a phone, and my mother was one of the dispatchers, and just like Jim says, she would answer the phone, somebody report an emergency. She would then, one, set off the siren, which was at Station 1, which when I was a child, I used to hear that siren and I would run up to the main highway because I knew the fire trucks would be coming. So I just loved that. It was something, a memory that I'll always have. But then my mother would dispatch from their bedroom. I mean, that was how the system operated. But it was, like you said, it was people that cared about their community and cared about humanity enough that they were willing to spend their time. And I know that my mother was woken up in the middle of the night many times for an ambulance call or things like that. And like you said, we went from that to 130 some members and 5 firehouses. And the largest, one of the largest fire departments, volunteer fire departments in the country, and certainly the one in the state.
All right, let's go down this way. We do have a complete assortment of all of the generations of pagers that were used. And here is something that's rather unique. The hat is the actual chief's hat from the only battalion chief the department ever had. He was in charge of Station 2 back in the beginning when it first opened up, and the reason they had a battalion chief there were very active railroad tracks that separated Station 2 from the rest of the city. And if there was ever a delayed response because of a train, they wanted a battalion chief. They wanted a chief in charge of the scene until the rest of the command staff would get there. So that's kind of unique.
This was New Berlin back in the day, and the main firehouse was right here. And then, like Jim said, Station 2 opened up over here, and the railroad tracks are this little dotted line. So that's why even though that Station 2 was a much smaller area, but that was the other side of the railroad tracks.
The next thing over here, this is something that I'm really kind of proud of. We have an original Halligan bar from the original company that made Halligan bars. This was bought from Chief Halligan of the New York City Fire Department himself. It was the forcible entry tool used on the snorkel on 607. And the reason we know it came from Chief Halligan is because it has the Latin letters inscribed in the forked end, which meant for the greater honor and glory of God. That was something that Chief Halligan wanted put into all of his Halligan bars because he was a very devout Catholic and wanted that Jesuit model put into his tools.
So I got to be perfectly honest with you. I've carried that tool many a times as a volunteer. I was assigned to this. My first company I was assigned to was Snorkel 7. If I would have known that was really a Halligan bar, that thing would be in my basement right now. It wouldn't be on this wall because that's a very valuable tool. Those of you who are in the fire service understand that to have an original Hugh Halligan is something really special.
And that's why I said I'm really happy to have this.
Yeah. Now I will say something that I find unique. In the days that we have now, where we tune our tools and we do all these things to them, this is an original Halligan bar, and if you look at it, the fork is really wide compared to the distance here to here is really wide compared to how you would tune a Halligan bar now. Along with, the adze is shorter. It's shorter and wider. So if this is the original, we've come a long ways. We have a shield here, a gold leaf shield, and I'm assuming that's Bill's shield.
Yes, it is.
So Bill Murgis, he replaced me as the captain of Station 5, I believe. When we started Conway Shield and we were attempting to grow the business, we needed some money for a piece of machinery. Actually, if you flip over your shield and you see in the back it says Paul Conway Shield on the back, we had to buy that machine. Well, that machine was $1,800 back in the day. And two dopey firemen, Craig and I, we didn't have that kind of money. We were both married. We just didn't have that kind of money. We went bank to bank to get a loan. And everybody said no. Who's going to loan money to a 20-year-old kid? Well, sure enough, we go to one bank, and Lincoln State Bank says, absolutely. And they loan us the money. They actually give us a line of credit for $20,000. Now, at the time, I'm making $13,000, 14 grand. So I'm like, holy cow, I just got a note for half a year's salary, or for over a year's salary. Well, I came to find out years later that Bill Mergus, who was a volunteer firefighter but also a very successful businessman, said, I'll cover the kid's note. And that's why the bank gave us the money. If you're in the fire service and you're wearing a Conway Shield on your helmet, you can thank Bill. Because Bill had the courage to pay forward and to take a risk on a young guy with an idea. That shield is really kind of special because Bill was a very special individual. Truly, over the years, he was a kind of guy who continually had my back. Bill would explain things to me and show me where things are, and then show me how to cut expenses and show me how to do all these things which I had no idea of because I'm a dopey fireman.
And one other thing, when we opened up the museum, Bill donated a tremendous amount of money to help us start this and was an active docent until up to the time of his passing.
Yeah.
One other thing you want to take a look at is the original oath that every member took. It's a little different than the oath that you take when you're a sworn firefighter in the state of Wisconsin. It's very, very unique in that it says that, to give freely of your time and labor, to be careful with your criticisms and liberal with your praise, to build up and not to destroy. When I started on the department and all the years through, that always hung at Station 1. And everybody that was on the volunteer department took that oath.
When you took that oath as a volunteer, it really meant a lot. Okay, let's move on.
This wall here is dedicated to Station 5. Station 5 was a station that was
firehouse in the city, just saying.
built in 1971 in the industrial park. Station 5 was the storied firehouse. It was the station that had a reputation to it. The sign here where it says New Berlin Station Number 5, that was the sign that came off the front of the building. The plaques you see on the wall here were the actual plaques that were affixed to the engines as company mascots. The closet hooks, the axe, the longboard, everything came off of rigs that had been assigned to Station Number 5.
In the 70s, I can remember firefighters coming in here and leaving to start their careers in Kenosha, in Racine, in Watertown, Wisconsin, in Menominee Falls, in Milwaukee. This firehouse turned out a lot of career firefighters. The advantage we really had was because we started there, even myself, when I left and became a city firefighter, we all came back. So even though this was a volunteer firehouse, there was probably half that were career firefighters that were giving their time back to New Berlin for all of the advantages we got as we stepped into the career role.
Yep, as you can see, when in the 46 years of the department, we ran 43,000 calls. And also, if you notice, and we'll talk about this a little bit when we get in the other room, the ladies' auxiliary at the beginning of this department was very, very important in the development of the department.
Absolutely.
So we'll go in here. Everything in this room, again, came from the volunteer stations, except for the sign that says, service is our only product. This is an interesting story. Service is our only product. This sign hung on the back wall of the apparatus bay in the West Milwaukee Fire Department. That station eventually became Milwaukee Fire Station 33. We wrote a book on the history of the fire department in New Berlin. And when you research the history, you find out that New Berlin had a motto of service is our only product. I became involved with the West Milwaukee Fire Department, training high school students there as part of the school district in West Dallas. And when we were in the station, I noticed this sign, service is our only product. In my research when we wrote the book, we found out that many of the volunteer chiefs in New Berlin, when the department started, spent a lot of time in West Milwaukee figuring out how to start a fire department.
That is a true story. Obviously, yes, you saw a picture. That's my father. That's where I get a lot of my bad habits from. Good habits also.
Another thing that's important about the early history of New Berlin, that photo on the wall to the right, you can see the firefighter in the cab of the original fire engine on a telephone. Back in 1955, the Wisconsin Telephone Company installed a portable telephone in engine one, which for its time, here again, something way advanced, something. Yeah. And we actually, when we were doing the research for the book, we have the phone number for that telephone. Every station and many of the companies had their own patches, mascot patches, and we have a complete collection of every patch that was part of the volunteer fire department. Paul probably remembers this photo here. This is a photo from the wall at Station 5. Yeah. And then some of the other pictures on the wall came from the various firehouses. Lastly, we have a memorial to Jay Belchunas, who was a member of our department. He was working for the State Department of Drug Enforcement, and he was downtown in Milwaukee on an assignment and was unfortunately fatally shot. But he wanted to be buried with a full fire department funeral, and so we made this little memorial to him.
Jay was a city Milwaukee police officer. He was one of my recruits in the volunteers, and I said, Jay, you got to find something else to do. This probably ain't your career. And I was wrong, because he stayed on as a volunteer, but he became a city copper. His idea was eventually to become in the state of Wisconsin, the fire investigators are under the state DOJ, under the fire marshal's office. And his goal was to become one of those. While he was a city Milwaukee police officer, he was assigned to HIDA, which is the drug unit. And they were asked to watch a suspect. And while they were on their way to watch that suspect, Jay stopped to get a cup of coffee. And being plainclothes, they did not recognize he was a police officer, and somebody held him up, and he was shot, murdered, and the rest is history. But Jay was an amazing individual. He was an amazing police officer. I could tell you some stories about him.
One last thing I'd like to talk about before we leave the room. On the wall over here, we have the actual minutes of the very first organizational meeting of the New Berlin Volunteer Fire Department in February of 1954. We actually found the entire first year handwritten minutes of the New Berlin Volunteer Fire Department, which we consider that as one of the really momentous pieces of artifact that we have. Another thing, we have the original charter with the original members and a sample of every badge that was used on the department.
We're in the next room here. It looks like the whole history of the fire department if you go around every wall.
Yeah, that was the intent with this room here. If you do walk around and read all the articles, you'll come up with the entire history of the fire department from its very beginning all the way over to the letters that show the official ending of the volunteer department. Probably one of the most important things in this room are these card tables that were used by the ladies' auxiliary when the department started. When the department started, like I said, it was a township back then, and there wasn't a lot of tax money available, and there just wasn't a lot of money at all available. So they ran card parties, fashion shows. They had special nights at the local drive-in theaters to raise money. And these are the card tables that were used for these events. And they raised enough money where the city was able to buy an ambulance. And it was the first ambulance in Waukesha County, as far as we know, that was attached to a fire department. So apparently back in the beginning, EMS was kind of important to the volunteers, as much as I know.
Oh, of course it was. I mean, the reality is that's true, though. It is true. And EMS is still very, very, as much as I give it business, EMS is still a very important part of the fire service. And I think there's nobody that could do it better than the American Fire Service.
And I agree with that. We do have a complete set of every uniform that was used on the department during the time it was volunteer. These are some of the Karen's helmets that were issued, and these are the MSA helmets that were used when the department began. These jump boxes were used on the ambulances, and they were color-coded. You can see the blue one down there. That was used for resuscitation equipment. This, with the red one, had bleeding and first aid control in it. And there was also a yellow one for obstetrics. So we had different jump boxes for different needs within the ambulance. We used that system for a long time, but that was eventually replaced with the larger, more efficient 747 boxes.
Yep. There's another picture of this in the other room, but this is, that was actually I almost fell through the roof in that, so that was could have ended my career quickly. And I was discussing earlier about the women dispatching from their home. I believe that's my mother.
Yes, it is.
Sitting there.
It is. This letter is kind of neat. It's a letter that was sent to the residents the end of April of 1955 when the department became operational. And it's telling the people of New Berlin, you now do have your own fire department, and this is the phone number to call. Because before the volunteer department here became operational, depending on where you lived in the township, you called a different fire department.
And then what do we got over here, Jim?
I memorialized the three famous fires from the early days of the volunteer fire department. The Champion Brick Fire, Chappie's Explosion and Fire, and the Beacon Bowl Fire.
What it's worth, I've been at all three of these.
And I was the first due on the bowling alley fire. That fire actually had a book written about it. It was a legal book explaining the lawsuit that was filed after the fire between the Wisconsin Electric Company and the people who installed the electrical service in the building. This may have been the biggest fire New Berlin ever fought. And this is what the department looked like in 1970 with its 5 stations. And up here, we have a plaque that memorializes a snorkel brought in 1970. It was a unique piece of equipment for a volunteer fire department to have a snorkel. That was rare.
Yeah, we were the second busiest snorkel in the state of Wisconsin. And that's because the Milwaukee Fire Department was the only other snorkel in the state of Wisconsin. So they were a little busier than us. But we were the second busiest snorkel in the state. Yeah, these were all, this, like you said, was a large fire. This was a arson fire that it took years to prove. And then this also was, Champion Brick was a fire started along the rail line that moved basically from the 124 block all the way up to 180 block. And in the process, it caught this old building on fire, and we had miles of brush fire to contend with, along with this. There's a lot of good memories here, I have to say. This railroad car, there was a bunch of wood chips in it, and we had to remove the wood chips and overhaul it. And masks weren't really popular back then, certainly not for overhaul. And I just remember becoming ill and leaving just throwing up.
This wall here, back in the beginning, firemen drinking beer after a call in the firehouse. And as the department grew, you have the first EMTs, and as you can see, it just keeps getting more professional and more professional to down here where we have the crew of our 95-foot ladder platform. So kind of shows the growth of the department. A lot of people like to mention the tailboard picture.
Yeah, long boots, long coats, long boots, and tailboards. Oh, we got to get back to the old days. Yeah, it was crap. It was cold, miserable, and it sucked.
The last part of the tour, I guess, would be come down here. This is what the department looked like when it ended in 2000. We had 5 stations. That's a drawing of Station 1, and you can see the modern rigs. When the department ended, it was a complete fleet of E1 fire apparatus, including a 95-foot tower and ladder 5, which was a 75-foot stick. So you end the tour with Chief Crocker from New York, his famous letter about, I have no ambition in the world, but one in that is to be a fireman.
There's a lot here. I would recommend, if anybody happens to be in the New Berlin area, Jim, when is this open? When is this?
This museum is open the second Sunday of every month from 1 to 4. And then if you check on the New Berlin Historical Society website, there are open house events throughout the summer. The next one will be at the beginning of October. There's one last thing I would like to mention. The engine here itself, it's a 1982 Persh purchased by the city in 1984. I want to talk about the cloud. When we were on the department, everybody just knew this blue emblem here as the cloud with the bell, ladder, and axe in it. But that's not a cloud. This was actually symbolizing the pond at the end of Town Road, which was the original water pickup point for the fire department back in 1955.
That was an excellent walkthrough. I really appreciate your time here today. We will have a part 2 to this, where I'm going to interview some of the members who were volunteers with me and went on to become career firefighters and what this job meant to them. But for today and from Beyond the Shield, Jim, thank you very much. Thank you for the tour. Again, if you get a chance, if you're in the New Berlin area, you should come check this out. There's a lot of history in this building. There's even more than what we showed you. So with that, have a wonderful day. Until next time from Beyond the Shield, God bless.